Hello, welcome back. In the last video we talked about how Michael Porter had moved on his thinking in the 1990s and 2000s to form what you could call a Porter Mark II. And within that, replacing the ideas of a small number of generic strategies with a more nuanced view of the value proposition and also lines of defence that stop competitors from imitating your position, and so achieving sustainable competitive advantage. Porter talks about 5 tests of a successful strategy: the unique value proposition, different tailored value chain, clear trade-off choices of choosing what to do and what not to do, activities that fit together and reinforce each other, and then strategic continuity. You can't keep flip-flopping around in terms of your strategy and choices to be able to build the high levels of fit that you need to sustain competitive advantage. Now in this video I want to talk about how you go about applying this theory. Firstly, starting with how would an organisation go about setting its strategy if using Michael Porter's ideas? Well, clearly the first thing you have to do is to decide on what your unique value proposition is, and in that deciding on which customer you're going to serve and which not, which customer needs you're going to satisfy and which not, and what is the relative price position that you're going to adopt. Now, there are many answers to those questions, and many organisations can operate in the same industry with different value propositions but not be in direct competition. Also in that, willing to make some customers who are not your targets unhappy. And then having decided on that value proposition, you then need to think about how you translate that position down into the activity choices that the organisation makes. Now you do that by using strategic themes. A small number of high-level strategic choices that link the value proposition down into action in the organisation. Now these are not at the level of individual activities, these are themes of activity choices to which you then look to align what happens inside the organisation. You then pass those themes down into the operation activities of the organisation, looking for the different parts of the business to align to those strategic themes and look to create reinforcing fit. And then how do you optimise that fit to fit local conditions? To demonstrate this, let's have a look at IKEA, that Michael Porter himself also uses as an example. Well, if you look at IKEA in terms of their value proposition, they have made some clear choices around which customers they're going to serve, mainly trying to target young buyers who want good design. Now they don't mind other people going there, but their focus is on making those customers happy. In terms of the needs they're looking to serve, well, it's the wide range of home servicing, everything you need in one place to equip your home. And then in terms of the price point, they're very much aiming at a low relative price. So within that, you can see there's some clear trade-off choices being made, both in terms of the customers they're looking to serve and in terms of that price point being adopted. Now, if you're a customer who's looking for bespoke, high-quality furniture that's delivered to you at home, you would not choose IKEA. You'd go somewhere else, perhaps Sofa Workshop, which will design and build you a bespoke sofa. That's a different customer need, and IKEA have happily decided not to deliver to the customers who want that service. Let's hear Michael Porter talking about IKEA's value proposition.
Now, all of this works best when you kind of illustrate it with an example. Let me use an example that I think everybody here probably knows pretty well. And that's IKEA or IKEA, depending on whether you're European or American. They made a set of choices about how they were going to have and deliver unique value. And it really started with a view of who the customer is. And most good strategies that are really powerful strategies embody an insight into how to think about customers that's different than people had thought of in the past. But IKEA figured out that there was a very interesting segment that nobody had identified that turned out to be really big, which is people in general that lived in smaller spaces, apartments, dorm rooms, people that were educated and sophisticated enough to want nice design and style for their furnishings in their home, but people that had really, really limited budgets. So the traditional way of meeting this segment's needs, well, first of all, nobody could meet it. But if you wanted really cheap furniture, what'd you do? You bought used furniture, you went to the Army Navy store, you know. But IKEA figured out that there was a big market here. And there was a big market, particularly if you could have high style products that were well designed, that had good materials, that were coordinated into collections, which allowed people to have sort of a nice environment in their home and things that work together and fit together. If they could figure out how to do that and meet that really low price point, they would potentially have something big on their hands. And again, traditionally, there was this trade-off between high style and design and price. If you wanted good design and good style, you had to pay a lot. And IKEA said, well, what if we could figure out a way to deal with that with the additional sophistication of understanding that there's these customers with relatively small living spaces and people that have money but also actually care about the style that we can target. That's a value proposition. And it turned out to be very, very novel. A lot of the power of strategy comes from actually recognizing that there actually are some trade-offs and that we should actually be willing to make them. So let's take a trade-off like IKEA made. So, a lot of people would like to have, well, I want this size of this particular sofa. Or I'd like to change the fabric. Or maybe, I'd like to have a different color. And IKEA says, those are all perfectly valid needs. Fine. It's just that we don't do that. And the concept of trade-offs is that in order to be uniquely good at delivering some kinds of value, you have to be deliberately willing to choose not to offer other kinds of value. And all great strategies involve these trade-offs. And the companies that fail are the ones that aren't willing to make them. If there's any living and breathing human being that has a need, they'll try to meet it. Rather than say, no, these are our target customers. These are the needs we really care about meeting. Let's optimize on those, not on doing the other things. One of the most important principles of strategy in virtually every industry I've worked in is the following. And it's going to sound maybe a little weird when I say it. A great strategy involves making customers unhappy. Okay? Now, that's a little bit of a trick. The essence of strategy is knowing which customers you want to make really happy by meeting their needs, and then not worrying that you can't please everybody. If somebody comes into IKEA and wants sales help, that's a perfectly valid thing. It's okay to want sales help. So suppose they don't see any sales help and they get really mad and they go and get a comment card, and they write down, well, I hate you, you have no sales help. Should IKEA care about that comment? Of course not. That's not what they do. But yet so much of activity in so many companies is tied up kind of trying to do customer sat and pleasing everybody and analyzing the comment cards and not realizing that actually half of the comment cards are the bizarre people that really shouldn't be there. You know, it's like somebody who complains to Southwest Airlines, you know, that they don't have first class. So again, strategy is fundamentally about choice.
So for IKEA, very clear value proposition and some very clear trade-off choices starting to emerge. If we then look at the strategic themes that they have put in place to bring alive that value proposition in the organisation, well, themes are a modular scalable concept, the buy-in-the-box approach. So everything designed and made for flat packing with common components being included in many items of furniture that get scale and gives some degree of flexibility of some of their products to customers. Very much self-selection and low service in their stores. They're set up so they display all their products so you can see what each item looks like when assembled. If you want to ask questions, well, if you're lucky enough to find one of IKEA's staff, what more information can they give you? Here it is. This is it. This is what it looks like. This is the size of it. They don't need to have more information or trained expert staff in particular items of furniture. It's self-delivery. So you choose your item, you pick up your box off the shelves and you take it home and assemble it yourself. So removing the need for logistics and delivery and keeping the flat pack concept flying right the way through from the factory to your home. They offer a complete range of home furnishing, right the way from basic furniture items like beds and sofas all the way through to bathroom fittings and kitchen utensils. So you can equip your whole home at IKEA. And behind the scenes there is a great emphasis on low-cost manufacturing and warehousing. So a lot of design looks at how to keep the cost of manufacture low. So here we can see in these selection of themes even more trade-off choices being committed to. So once you've got then those strategic themes agreed, you're then looking at how you can build alignment in the business. And here you use something that Michael Porter calls the activity system map. Here you start by mapping those themes that you have decided on and looking at how they link together to help reinforce each other. Well, clearly here at IKEA there are links between the modular scalable approach design and low-cost manufacturing. You're making standard parts a lot of the time. That modular scalable design also means you can have a wide range of furniture with different modules being put together in slightly different ways. And having looked at the themes, you then look at how choices have been made in specific activities that are done in the firm and how they're consistent with those themes. So in terms of self-delivery and assembly by the customer, well, by choosing suburban sites with plenty of parking, that enables that self-delivery, so self-loading to their customer's car, and the customer can take the product away with them. By designing for manufacturing and automating manufacturing also drives low cost. You're beginning to see the level of fit across IKEA's operations in those activity choices. You're also then looking into what extent those activity choices are reinforcing each other. So for example, directing customers to take a set route through the gigantic stores means that they are seeing other items, and that is amplifying the level of cross-selling that is happening in the stores. Similarly, by having those large stores and laying them out as they do, customers can see the whole range of products and what they look like when assembled. That means you can have low levels of staffing, with staff not providing expert input into your purchase. So you're seeing here with IKEA how the activity choices are consistent with the themes, and the themes and activity choices are reinforcing each other. So if we look at IKEA as a whole, we've seen they've got a clear value proposition. We've seen there's some clear strategic themes that link that value proposition down into the operations of the business. We're seeing a large number of trade-off choices, both in the value proposition and in the strategic theme, and we're seeing a system of activity choices that is showing simple consistency, first order fit, and also showing reinforcing fit. Now, in terms of third order fit, I don't have enough information to assess whether they have that order of fit, although I suspect they do. And that system of activities, that alignment and those trade-off choices do seem to have given IKEA a sustainable competitive advantage. After all, they have been leaders in that space for 30 years now, and it's very clear how they do it, and yet no one has really imitated them successfully. Now, to do that, IKEA have been very consistent in their strategy and choices. They have maintained that high level of fit. So IKEA do meet all of Porter's 5 tests of a good strategy: a unique value proposition, a different tailored value chain, clear trade-off choices, activities that fit together and reinforce each other, and strategic continuity. And therefore we can expect IKEA to still be a leader in the years ahead. Now, if you're using Porter's theory as an analytical tool, my advice is to work through these steps. Firstly, look for evidence as to if there has been clear choices made about the firm's value proposition. So they've made clear choices about which customers they will serve and which not. Have they made clear choice about which needs they'll serve and which not? And have they made a clear choice in terms of the relative price position they're going to occupy? Then look to see if there's evidence of clear strategic themes that link that value proposition down to the firm's activity choices, and whether trade-off choices have been made in either the value proposition or those strategic themes. Then, using those strategic themes, construct an activity systems map. So starting with the themes and then mapping in activity choices. With the lines joining up the themes and the activity choices, you can assess whether the firm has developed first order fit, simple consistency, or gone further and achieved second order fit, reinforcing fit. Now, from the activity systems map, you cannot tell whether a firm has third order fit. You have to go back into the evidence to see if the firm is constantly experimenting and looking to improve the level of fit it has. And then finally, you're looking for evidence to show that the firm has sustained its strategy over time, so is demonstrating strategic continuity. So, Porter Mark II, a very useful tool to help you think about how to set the firm's strategy and also to analyse if a firm has sustainable competitive advantage. Thank you.